Yo, what's up, guys? And welcome to the first inaugural episode of Show X for now, I guess. We don't know what to call this.
Yeah, we're going to need your help. We don't know what we're going to do. This is like a trial. We're just going to have a discussion about a few topics that we like to discuss, and we thought you guys would be interested in hearing it too. We want to hear your thoughts and opinions as well on the topics we discuss.
Yeah, so Ryan and I obviously have been doing these tutorials for a while, and as some of you guys have pointed out, there's only so many tutorials we can do. We've been smashing out videos 2 a week for quite a long time now, and we're just sort of going, how can we make this sustainable and interesting for the next 10 years as opposed to just the next 10 months? Which is always going to be interesting. But it's a common transition amongst YouTubers, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. You see it happen with a lot of people. They tend to start off with tutorials and then they kind of transition into a more vloggy, podcasty style of thing where they start to just discuss topics and...
Yeah. Well, transitions are always happening. Like, for instance, there's transitions happening in Ryan's life. Like, he used to like girls, now he likes boys. So, yeah.
It's not true. I actually got married, so...
You did get married?
Yeah.
That's the last time we hung out.
Yeah. And Kale was actually the best man, which was a bad decision, but... it worked out alright.
I think I actually won an Oscar for the best man speech in the world.
Or maybe the most inappropriate. Same, maybe.
Excellent. So we thought we'd start off this little chat today. Talk about the World Tour, WSL, because even though we've focused more on beginner to intermediate surfing, we're obviously big fans of the World Tour because, especially these days, the best surfers in the world are on the World Tour, which hasn't always been the case with, free surfers doing their best surfing outside of competition. But nowadays it seems to be in competition. It's been a pretty cracking start to the year. Interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. Interesting that probably one of the first times in a long time that they held the whole contest at D-Bar. I think the last time was in the 2000s, late 2000s. So
I remember that.
Yeah.
That was like, I think, who won that contest? Was it Taj? It was small D-Bar the last time they did it, but it looked so fun.
Yeah.
I remember watching that and like frothing really hard on it because it looked so fun.
Yeah. And if you guys haven't had the chance to surf D-Bar before, it's probably one of the best beach breaks in Australia.
Nah.
You don't think?
Nah. It's too crowded. You have to factor in the crowds.
True.
Wave-wise, it's very good, but there are some beaches up there which we will go to in July that are definitely the best in the world. And also the south coast of New South Wales, I think. And South Australia, even out west, there's some pretty cracking beaches.
Yeah, but we won't go into that. It's a very sensitive topic. So
so the contest was taken out by Italo Ferreira. Bit of a controversial decision, which we're going to cover in another video as well. But he was able to wrest victory from the hands of Chloe Andino, who hadn't won a contest. He still hasn't won a contest in a very long time, surprisingly. The score itself was, I think, a 7.07, and he needed like a 6.9 or something. And there was a big controversy around whether one air, which is what he did on the wave to get it, was actually enough to get that score. What do you think about that? There's always this discussion going on about flow and linking turns together versus one big turn and all this different stuff. What do you think?
I think you have to acknowledge the technicality of the airs that those guys perform. It's very much a combination of gymnastics and exact timing and where they put their body. I'm not an air guy, that's unfortunate, but...
Really?
But still, you can appreciate it's amazing. So I think it's interesting. But in saying that, the top to bottom, really basic surfing done well, that kind of coffin style, that's a hard thing to do as well. So both of them have to be... It's hard to say.
It's surfing, it's subjective.
Yeah.
But that's why there are 5 judges. It's not like there's one guy going, no, in my opinion, Italo did the air better than Chloe's wave. Like, it's 5 judges, top and bottom score get eliminated. So it's kind of, they're allowing for that as much as possible. But again, what is going to be more relevant in 2019? Power surfing or aerial surfing? We saw an incredible display of aerial surfing at D-Bar throughout the contest. I mean, they had the Red Bull Air Show, or whatever the thing was called, and Reef Hazelwood really stood out there. Philippe, obviously, who shares our sponsor, Smooth Star, was shined in that small little contest. So we definitely saw some of the best surfing we've ever seen. It seems like the level of surfing for 2019 has been set really high.
Yeah.
The judges are being somewhat conservative with their scores, which I think is probably a smart idea. But yeah, in the end, I guess we saw Italo take it out. What I do want to talk about is that the interesting call that they made to not run the contest at D-Bar the day before the finals were actually run. They tried to go back to Snapper.
Yeah, so why was that?
Well, this is interesting. There's a little bit of controversy, and I read on Beach Grit, which is kind of like the gritty journalistic approach to dissecting the surf industry. And he was saying, I think it's Derek O'Reilly, was saying that contractually the event should be held in Queensland because all the agreements, all the deals are done with Queensland Tourism, Queensland Council. But the tricky part is that Snapper Rocks is technically in Queensland, but it sits right on the border. D-Bar, which is just around the corner, is in New South Wales. So totally different council permits, filming permits, money, financial situation, whether it's poured into New South Wales economy or Queensland economy. So it's a whole bunch of political things which came into play. So Pat O'Connell, in his first contest, I think, that he's run as commissioner, sort of contractually had to go, well, this is the only day that there could be waves at Snapper. We're going to have to at least display that we're at least interested in holding the event there. And it turned out to be a monumentally bad decision because D-Bar was firing all day and they totally missed the event window. Yeah.
So, I mean, I think everyone who follows the tour would know that in the lead up to that contest, it was well known that the bank at Snapper wasn't that good. I think it was very short and punchy behind the rock, and then it was fattening out. So
they probably should have arranged something. Yeah. Really, they need a better contingency plan.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, hopefully in the future there'll be a easier decision making model for those sorts of problems that come.
Yeah, and I mean, we've been around contests our whole life. We used to commentate and be behind the scenes, and I've got friends who work for the WSL. It's always easier looking from the outside. Running the content. Sure. It's difficult.
Yeah. I mean, you can't underestimate the amount of pressure on those guys making those decisions. There's a lot of money at stake, so it's a big call.
Speaking of money, the girls have been allocated the same prize pool as the boys now, but with less surfers.
Yeah.
So more money per surfer. What do you think about that?
Well, I mean, there's no doubt that they should be paid the same as the guys. There's no... with equality and everything.
Well, it's a new trend.
Yeah,
really.
For sure.
But I don't know if it is equality if they've got less surfers sharing the same prize pool.
Yeah, well, I mean, you think maybe they would work it out. So
they need to increase the amount of surfers
or drop it, for sure.
Well, apparently, I was speaking to an up-and-coming professional women's surfer back in Sydney, and she was saying how there was, apparently, this is just word on the street, there was a meeting at which the question was raised, do we invite an extra 12, 14 surfers on the tour to match the boys, to allocate or to account for that extra prize money? And apparently, which is no surprise, the surfers were like, no, we'll just take the prize money. Yeah. So it's a little bit of an interesting situation. Kelly Slater put it in a really nice way on his Instagram. I can't remember what he actually said. With the whole thing, I mean, this is going on in all sports around the world, is should women be paid as much as men, even if in those particular sports they do not bring as much attention in terms of numbers to the broadcast, to the sport and all these different things. So it's interesting. I think Kelly put it in a really good way and sort of made me think twice about questioning it and all these different things. And we'll put the post on screen now, perhaps, that particular post. But I mean, how do you navigate that situation without offending people, without going against the new age trend of feminism and empowering women? And, I'm all for equal opportunity, but, how do you navigate that? It's pretty difficult.
For sure. Too difficult for me to think about. That's for sure.
It's probably too sensitive for us here to chat about, but with our audience being 87% male, I'm sure you guys are fine.
But in saying that, if you are a lady watching, we'd love to hear your opinion and what you think about it.
That's true. Thank you. Please comment below and let us know. We are not inherently sexist human beings, just realists. We'd love to hear your opinion and are open to all ideas. The contest then went to bells.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, there's a lot of hype around that, starting off in less than desirable conditions at Winky. Still pretty fun, and it was good actually because you got to see the best in the world surf fairly small, fairly grovelly waves, and then it was interesting to see their equipment selection. And then towards the end of the event, obviously there was that forecasted huge swell. 50 years swell, all this. And did it even end up being like that or not?
Well, it was shit, really. On the big stormy day, it sucked. But the day after was pumping.
Yeah, for sure.
But it's good because those conditions where contests change so dramatically in terms of conditions, it's only the surfers who can adapt and change and surf in all conditions who thrive and do well, which is what the tour is all about.
Exactly. I mean, that's why the best rise to the top at the end of that event. Who won?
They did. I mean, JJF, John, arguably, I'd say my favourite surfer, 100% my favourite surfer, in terms of performance and ability and attitude and all the rest of it. I think he's definitely the best, and objectively, I'd say he's doing the best surfing we've ever seen from anyone ever as a surfer. Would you agree?
For sure. Oh, yeah. I mean, back in the day when we were... I mean, how long ago would that been? 15 years ago? When we were...
Wow, don't say that.
living and breathing it and watching the contest then, it's changed a huge amount now. Wow. Because back then, for someone to do one air reverse, that was huge. But now, I mean, they're full rotation airs and in combination with huge laybacks and
it's crazy.
Everything put together on a wave. He's doing that better than anyone.
And watching him in big waves, I mean, I think his ability in big, powerful waves was brought to light in a competition sense in Margaret River 2 years ago. And that was when I think Kelly commented and said that anyone else on tour is pretty much feeling irrelevant at this stage in waves of consequence like that, because he was just surfing it as if it was a 3 to 4 foot wave. It's so hard to surf waves that size with the amount of control, and he was dominating 8 foot waves. If we were out there on those days, we would have been like hopping and skipping over those bumps. It is so hard to surf waves like that, the way he does. Yeah, for sure. I mean, you have to appreciate the difficulty involved, and then the commitment too. Like when you see him doing airs on those sorts of waves, I mean, it's not necessarily in a lot of competition, but in some of his free surfing clips, he's doing huge airs on massive sections, like 6 foot waves. Yeah. Like they're 2 foot dangerous.
waves.
That's why he's been injured.
Yeah. But that's the thing. I mean, that commitment and that hunger is clearly working for him. So it's interesting.
He I've read an article that he travels, I think it was on Stab's Rich List article. He travels with like a team of 5 or 6. So he has like a trainer or like a physio trainer person. He has Ross Williams, who's obviously the coach. He has a chef. He's got a videographer and someone else. Like, how wild is that? Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
So they're running a pretty tight shop. I mean, not that you can excuse somehow his ability, but you would expect him to be at the top of his game with that sort of support going on.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I remember there's lots of other surfers who have done similar things in the past with their support network and being very selective about who they take with them, and there's no doubt that has a huge effect on their performance and their stress levels and... Yeah.
Well, just imagine being able to rock up and not have to worry about going shopping for food. And there's very few surfers on the world tour who are able to travel with that amount of support and luxury.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
A lot of surfers not flying business. I know that for sure.
Yeah, that's right. It's hard out there now. I mean, everyone knows about how the industry has changed, surf industry. Like back in 10 years ago, there's money flying around left, right and centre. And
that's true. And there were deals signed back then that are ending now. And surfers are having to take big pay cuts, namely Kaloha and Dino, apparently.
Yeah, right. It's interesting. It's hard out there. It's hard. And I guess that kind of... You can see surfers looking at other avenues to become appealing.
Well, this is interesting. We run into the idea of surfers jumping on social media platforms and using those to solidify their position, their relevancy in the sport, because as some people might not know, unless you are in the top 10, top 20, even that's pushing it, professional surfing contingent, you're probably not thriving and living it up. You're actually on the grind, you know?
Yeah.
So there are surfers who are looking towards things like YouTube and Instagram to really push their message, and in the end, it all comes down to sell product.
Yeah. And what's cool about that, though, which I kind of like, is it's interesting. You get a bit more of an insight into their life and what they do and what they're like. I find that really interesting. It's
yeah,
cool.
To an extent.
Yeah, depending on what they talk about.
Sometimes, you know, watching someone go and order a coffee or learn a life skill or something is not always that interesting.
For sure. I think we're guilty of the coffee thing, so sorry. So we do like coffee.
Well, there's the thing though, I mean, it's the age of vlogging and holding a camera. I was just in Japan and everyone's holding a camera, you know, and it's kind of, you cringe at it, but I also go, hang on, we wouldn't even be here without this incredible social media platform that is YouTube.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely created a lot of fantastic opportunities.
Yeah.
Being able to share knowledge and experiences with other people and help them develop, you know, their interests. Obviously, that's what we're trying to do here, is we're trying to help other people progress their surfing from a learner to advanced level, and
in a way that takes away the fluff that we had to deal with.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, and it takes away a lot of mystery, makes that information readily available for people, which is good.
It is.
Yeah.
So I thought we'd talk about boards for a second. What sort of boards are you riding? Because we saw the switch up happen at Bell's. We saw the switch up from shorter boards, high performance boards at Winky. Winky is one of the most high performance point breaks in the world. I know it's one of your favourite waves. It's one of my favourite waves, especially when it's light onshore. It's just absolutely ridiculous. So we saw guys performing huge turns there on really high performance boards, shifting up to go to those big, knifier, sharper boards. What are you riding at the moment?
Certainly not a big knifey board, because I'm not surfing big knifey waves.
Have you ever surfed big knifey waves?
Probably the biggest waves I've surfed would have to be 3 foot. And even that was a little bit intimidating. No, not really. But no, I definitely I don't get really excited about big waves, I'll be honest. I do like the smaller stuff. So the boards that I ride reflect that. If you've been watching us pretty much the whole time up until now, or the last month, we've been riding the same board.
The Raptor?
Yeah.
So this little Raptor here, I'll put some little clips on screen now, those are great boards.
For sure. I mean, prior to that, like Kale and I, we surf a lot of the same types of waves all the time, and we have similar approaches, minus the Kale's air game. I can only floater instead of doing air. But for sure, we have a similar approach, and Kale heard about these boards about a year ago, and he got his, and I remember him telling me...
It's even 2 years ago, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you were so stoked on it, and that was making me feel like, I had to get one, and I was looking at getting a new board, and always looking at the smaller wave models, because that's what we surf. And I think it was pretty clear when we got on this, well, when I did for sure, like the first surf, I knew that this was going to be good. And it was lots of fun. I mean, what do you like most about that board?
It's alive. It's really alive. And I consider a board's paddling prowess and negotiating prowess as important as its on-wave performance, because if you're paddling in between waves and you're sinking, you're feeling like you can't get oomph into, or you just don't feel energy getting into waves and getting in between waves. It's a massive issue. So I never liked the knifey boards, and when I was about 16, I got off the knifey boards, and I've never gone back. Just because they're just a nightmare, really, in my opinion. They're just, unless you're in waves of consequence like they saw at Bell's, they're too hard work. So I really love that aspect to it. It's really high performance board, but it carries that paddling prowess. And as soon as you're up, it just has a lot of alacrity and energy. It's a very electric feeling surfboard. And you can hold rail and do those big airs and reverses and things like that. So they very flexible. Yeah.
I think that alive feeling that Kale was talking about, I think that really comes back to the material that board is, which is epoxy. And interestingly, if you've seen surfers at Kelly's wave pool when they held his event, a lot of them were opting for epoxy boards because it's a freshwater wave pool.
I didn't know that. Why?
Yeah, well, because it's fresh water, so there's less buoyancy.
I thought that was a myth. Kelly said that's a myth.
What, the buoyancy?
He said the reason everyone thought that freshwater had less buoyancy is because all the wave pools that were done in freshwater were shit and didn't have enough power. Whereas he said, no, we've just matched the power of the ocean. So then,
Okay. But even still, I mean, not saying that's not true because he would know it's his wave pool.
yeah.
But you can't deny that fresh water is less buoyant than salt
It's
water.
both
And
the salt
everyone
water,
knows
yeah.
that.
That's why those float tanks are filled with salt water.
Yeah,
You sit on top.
exactly.
Yeah.
So it's interesting for sure. But
So they were all on EPS.
a lot of them were,
Yeah.
for sure. And they were riding still like a high performance small wave board, which is kind of tricky to understand. Like the Raptor is still a high, you can see the outline, we'll chuck it on screen. Still a high performance board, but it's definitely like fishier in the sense you can see there's a lot of volume forward.
In the chair, under the chest and the nose.
Yeah. Make paddling easier, make like getting speed easier. Compare that to like a more high performance small wave board,
Something
which
that
is like
Philippe
this.
would ride as
Yeah,
well.
for
Yeah.
sure.
So knifey. I mean, I've held a few of Philippe's boards at the Smooth Star
Hmm.
factory warehouse. And you hold these things, they're like a freaking potato chip.
Yeah.
Crazy thin compared to the boards that we're riding.
Mm-hmm.
What's yours at the moment?
So one I'm riding is 26.5 litres.
What is it called again?
It's called a second cousin. So it's basically JR's newest small wave board.
But not so small wave that it's like a fish.
No, yeah, for sure. So it's interesting, but the best way I could describe it is, so the Raptor that I ride is a 5.6 and the step cousin or the second cousin that I ride is a 5.8. So it's the same volume, but the outline's very different. So that extra 2 inches has caused the board to become more streamlined. So the foam's like more evenly distributed. It's got a little bit more rocker, and all those things basically make it more high performance. So it makes it more responsive, less forgiving in a way, which is good if you're looking to surf a bit harder.
You're doing some good surfing on that though. Like that's, without being facetious as it can be, that was some of the better surfing I've seen you do in a while.
Oh, thank you.
It's still average.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. No, I did like it. Yeah, it was very different though. Like when you, like Kale said, you hop on a board and you paddle it out. It's always a little bit of an anxious moment because generally boards are really expensive, as you know. So you get a new board, you jump on it in the water, you start paddling, and in the past I've bought boards and I've known straight away that this board's going to suck for me.
That's the worst feeling.
Yeah, and then straight away, $900 gone out the window, and you're not getting that back.
I had that with the sci-fi.
Oh yeah.
When everyone was frothing on the sci-fi after Stewie Kennedy rode it at Snapper that year, and I was like, "Get me a sci-fi." Worst freaking board. I mean, I just hated it from the get-go.
Why?
I was like, I don't know. It felt like the back half of the board was dead. Like it felt like it was sinking in the water. I could not get any explosion out of the lip. It was just dead. Whereas, hopping on these boards, and I don't know if that felt like that way to you. There's always a little bit of transition time where you're feeling out a board.
Yeah, for
But
sure.
there's some times where you just go, no, this board is useless. I'm not going to ride it.
Yeah.
Did you have any inklings of that, or was that board pretty positive from the get-go?
No, it was positive from the get-go.
Yeah, it's a good sign.
The biggest change was just that it was a lot more responsive. So less forgiving in the sense that like small changes that you make to like your weight distribution or where you're looking and things like that, it would respond quicker and you'd feel it. And I felt like it had spark, really.
Yeah, that's a good word.
It had spark in the sense like it reacted quickly and it was fast. As soon as I put it on rail, it kind of took off. And
you were surfing
nice.
a pretty average spot.
Yeah, I mean, I actually thought that day, I actually felt that surf was pretty average. And then watching the footage back, I was pretty surprised.
Good,
yeah, the turns looked better than they felt, which is good.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what you want.
You want it to feel good too, though.
You do. Yeah.
But, I mean, put that surfing and that board in good waves and that could feel pretty electric.
I think so. Yeah, for sure. I think that's one point about epoxy boards. There's a lot of discussion and a lot of argument about should you get an epoxy board or should you get like a standard PU board? One thing that epoxies are mostly hated for by some surfers is that because of their material, they sit on the surface more. So
And they're light and chattery.
yeah, so these sorts of boards are made to help you gain speed, whereas a PU board, and that's kind of going to help you harness speed. But in saying that, the pros, the best in the world, are still surfing PU small wave boards, but then they can get that light, flexy feel from having super light glass jobs. But for the everyday surfer, if you do that, which I've done in the past,
your board just
they don't last very long. They last maybe 3 months, and then because the glassing's so light, I ended up putting my foot basically through the tail pad, and it happened time and time again. And once again, we're not in a position to be able to do that unless you're getting free boards like the pros are.
Yeah, it's difficult. You know what I found though? The people who complain about EPS boards are not good surfers. I've never had a good surfer, someone who I know rips, just go, nah, EPS boards suck. Like, it always comes down to, I think, ability with that sort of thing.
For sure. I mean, if you look at who's the best surfer in the world riding EPS boards all the time, who is it? Kelly.
Yeah, Kelly always
sure.
rides EPS stuff.
Yeah, exactly. All his boards are EPS, so if it's working for him, it's pretty good. But obviously he could surf an ironing board
and still
surf
rip.
it well. So,
love you, Kelly.
Yeah, please invite us to the wave pool.
Speaking of the wave pool, did you watch the contest last year? It's on the schedule, I think, this year as well.
Okay, yeah, interesting. I watched a little bit.
What did you think?
I thought clearly it's an amazing wave. I think anyone would love the opportunity to surf it, but I think maybe watching it wasn't quite as exciting.
It's weird because everyone was hyped up about watching the wave pool contest because we'd seen all the clips at that point. We'd seen Kelly getting barreled and filming GoPro selfies. Wow, it is piercing down right now. And it was exciting, and watching it was a bit of a letdown because I think it took away that element of what's going to happen next. Because if you watch surf contests, if you watch J-Bay, if you watch France, if you watch Snapper, anywhere, part of the excitement is who's going to get the next best wave and where's it going to come from, where's it going to break. And that wasn't the case with the wave pool. It was so consistent that I think it took away that element of excitement from a wave perspective. The excitement was there from a performance perspective, but in terms of waves, it wasn't there. But it evened the playing field, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. I mean, I guess being such a mechanical wave, it really exposed people's ability to, I guess, add variety and do the basics well. Like, a lot of people seem to be... Well, I mean, it kind of ticked a lot of boxes, didn't it? I mean, it had the barrel section, so it exposed how good they were at that.
Yeah.
Top to bottom surfing, there was lots of that. And then towards the end section, guys and girls were going for airs. So
some people were going for airs.
Yeah.
Because it's not an end section as such, it's kind of like it's an ongoing section. There's not like a little bit of whitewater like the Texas wave pool where you can line it up and hit it. The guys had to be the guys and girls had to be really technical with their airs. And as a result, it was a little bit underwhelming.
Yeah.
For that reason.
Well, yeah.
But this is where surfing is going on a more global scale to make it more digestible for people who are not into surfing, because surfing is one of those interesting sports where we watch the broadcast for sometimes... I've had it on, with the waves of shit at home and the weather's crap or whatever, I'll have it on for 8 hours and just be wandering around the house working or whatever and watching at the same time. People don't do that with a sport like football or something.
Yeah.
And you don't watch... You're not interested in what's happening with the grass in between quarters of a football game, Whereas we're like watching to see the waves, to do all this sort of stuff. So that's not going to be the case for everybody in the world, which is why I think there is that transition happening with, I suppose, it's not really a transition, it's just adding in wave pools into the mix. And I was just in Japan, as you would know. I was shooting my next film on longevity. And we'll have more on that later, but that's where the Olympics are next year, and surfing is going to be part of the Olympics, and there is that question of whether they are going to go wave pool or go ocean. I don't know if they've come to a decision yet.
What do you think's better?
Well, I don't know. I think wave pool for an Olympic style competition, because you've got waves on demand. Like if for the Olympics, for the first year that surfing's in the Olympics, if it was 1 foot and onshore, I mean, it would be a travesty. It would be embarrassing for the sport. They'd be like, well, this is what we have to deal with. Whereas with a wave pool, with wave pool technology, I feel like they can just, it's on demand, it's testing people's air game, it's testing people's tube riding if it's Kelly's wave pool. It's a whole bunch of things which you're kind of checking boxes, so it makes it a little bit boring, but overall the Olympics are kind of boring anyway.
Yeah.
I think.
Sure. Yeah. No, look, I mean, it'd be interesting to see what they end up deciding to do. But maybe what's cool, if they did have a wave like Kelly's, which is mechanical and every wave's kind of the same, it does make the best stand out because...
Yeah, it does. And you could pretty much write down now who's going to win. Or the top 5 people who are going to win. Yeah. Like anyone under the... anyone who's not in the top 5 to 10 surfers, you can pretty much say right now are not going to win the Olympics. With some pretty high confidence. I'd love to be proven wrong. I'd love to swallow my own words. But, you've pretty much got what? Like John, Gabrielle, Philippe. Italo, yes, for sure. He's definitely up there.
Maybe
Geordie,
Griffin.
maybe. Griffin.
Julian.
Chloe. Julian. I feel like, although I'm a massive fan, I feel like he is not up there this year. Again, I'd love to be proven wrong. But yeah, I mean, outside of that, you don't really have anyone who's really right there at the top of the game. And because that element of luck and the element of reading the ocean and being in the right position is taken away, it does come down to on-wave ability 100%.
Yeah. And those surfers who have the full bag of tricks, like everyone that we just mentioned, they're the ones who are going to be able to bring that variety to a section where maybe most surfers are doing a carve.
Or even just an air reverse is kind of redundant now, unless it's a full rote or it's a big different grab or it's something interesting.
Or like Italo D-bar, he was doing shove-its on his board.
That's where it's going.
Yeah. So I think it's those surfers that can bring those really progressive, or like that nose peak reverse that Philippe did last year at Snapper, you might remember. Surfers doing those sorts of manoeuvres in combination with everything else. I mean, they're the ones that are going to win. So it'd be interesting.
It'll slip in there nicely because there's already subjective judged sports like diving, like gymnastics. So that's probably what it's going to become like. It's a gymnastics routine. It's who can put together the most perfect gymnastics surfing routine on the day.
Yeah, for sure.
And they're going to be picking through scores with a fine-tooth comb.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing about competitions, and one thing that if you've competed before in surfing, you would understand, but if you haven't, one thing is that you always kind of get drummed into, whoever can get the best waves in that heat generally is going to win. When all surfers are kind of at an equal level of skill, whoever gets the best wave that allows them to do the biggest turns in the biggest sections, that looks the most impressive, they're the ones who are generally going to win the heat and progress through. It has changed a little bit over the years because now...
Because people can force a score a lot easier now, Yeah,
and that's what... Yeah, exactly. So... But then, like you said, by having the wave pool, it's the same wave with the same opportunities for every surfer. Then it just comes down to their skill level and what they can bring, and their creativity and their commitment, and how far they're willing to, obviously high risk moves are going to bring the high scores. So yeah, it's cool.
Interesting. Surfing is becoming very interesting. It's changing, and that's it's going to be curious to comment on that throughout the transition. Look, I think that's going to have to wrap up today's the inaugural episode of whatever this podcast will be called. We want to throw it out to you guys and ask you what we should call this format of the show. Ryan and I inevitably see each other maybe 4 to 5 times a year, maybe even a little bit more with my travels. So that's probably the frequency that we're looking at for a show like this. What should we discuss? What should the show be called? We want to ask you. So make sure you leave a comment below and make sure you try and have a look and upvote certain names as well. I know there's probably going to be a couple of jokers who will put some funny names, which is great. It's always a good time for a laugh. So make sure you do that. What do you think we should talk about?
I think we should talk about the things that we talk about when we're just hanging out. We often talk about boards and new models that have been released and what we think looks cool about them.
Surfer gossip.
Yes.
Surfer gossip. We're not going to talk about surfer gossip.
No. But it is interesting to see and hear stories of, our favourite surfers and their trials and their tribulations. And I guess a great example is John John's comeback from injury. And like Owen Wright's, like a year ago, you may remember.
All that sort of stuff. I mean, interviews would be great on this show. But I mean, if we're speaking honestly, and I value a lot of transparency, the surf industry is not known for its enthusiasm for media. And that's changing. I know people who work for the WSL who are trying to highlight the importance of media engagement from the surfers, but whether we can break through that and actually get some surfers on, we'll see. You might have to pull some old connections.
Not that I have any.
You were famous for harassing people.
That's true. Yeah, we're definitely not afraid of asking for things, are we? Of trying to open doors, that's for sure.
Yes.
So we'll keep knocking on those doors and see what happens, and let us know what doors you like us to try and knock on.
Wow, what a segue. What a closing statement. All right, guys. Well, thanks so much for tuning in. Be sure to subscribe to the channel. Again, let us know in the comments what else you want to see, what we should call this, what we should talk about. Join me on Instagram at Kale Brock Ryz. What's your Instagram?
Don't think we should go there. It's not one of my strengths, so we won't go there. We'll let it go. But one thing is let us know what you actually liked about this and maybe what you didn't like.
Yeah.
That's good for us to be able to know what we should change and what we should keep doing.
Yeah. Inevitably, Ryan's pronunciation of the word us, which is actually us, and together as together, will annoy some fans, but that's fine. We're very aware of that. At least I am, after spending too much time with this one. Guys, we'll see you soon.
Catch you soon.